Welcome to yet another episode of the Between Two Brands podcast. I am still your host, Bill Petrie, and I want to thank you again for joining us today. I think we've got a good show. I think we got a fun show, but I guess you'll decide that if you're inclined to listen. But before we jump in, why don't we go ahead and pay the rent, shall we? That's kind of what we do here. If you haven't noticed, there's been a ton of changes in the industry the past few years, from big distributor moves to supplier consolidation and all the AI stuff going on as well. It's hard to keep up with it all. And that's why I'd like to start the podcast today to talk about something we don't talk often enough about in the branded merchandise industry, and that is stability. Now, with all the changes that happen on a regular basis, it's really just as important that we talk about the companies that are established, stable, and strong. For over 90 years and 4 generations of family ownership, Shapenko has genuinely cared about the success of their clients. And that, my friends, is the definition of stability. Another point, since they only sell through promotional products distributors, Shapenko is dedicated to doing more than delivering quality merchandise at a fair price. They go the extra mile to ensure every single distributor project is a resounding success. It's the right way to do business, and that is how you continue to be stable and strong heading into the next 90 years. And the bottom line is this: Shapenko has absolutely stood the test of time. The experience, the products, and the people are absolutely the best. Head over to shapenko.com to start your next project today. All right. So, as I want to do, thinking about what I want to talk about in the opening shot. And this gets a little more challenging as I am batching some of the podcasts, recording them in advance, because I've got some travel coming up and I want to make sure that there's new content every Friday. And so looking ahead, because I believe this podcast is going to drop on June 12th, and I'm recording it about 3 weeks in advance of that. I started thinking about the World Cup merchandise, and the World Cup being played here in North America, most of the games I believe in the United States, and then several in Mexico and several more in Canada. So the first games, as this drops, were yesterday, and so it's going on for the next month. And it's expected to draw millions of fans. World Cup is a huge worldwide event, not as big of a deal in the United States traditionally. But has it been a boon for branded merch distributors? And I'm not sure it has been. In fact, I think it's going to be a huge challenge for anybody to really capitalize on the World Cup. And here's why. I don't know if you've looked at, and number first reason, I don't know if you've looked at any of the merchandise, but the cost is absolutely outrageous. The licensing fees and royalties that go to FIFA, which is the International Football or Soccer Association, the apparel manufacturers, whether it's Nike or Adidas, to use the logo, team crest, all that stuff is outrageous. And then so that's part of the cost. Then you have the global marketing that's baked into the cost of the merchandise. The scarcity of it. It's once every 4 years. So it's an opportunity to, I don't want to say gouge, but let's just say exploit supply and demand. And then you have tariff fears too, of a lot of that merchandise being produced overseas and coming in. There are some tariffs still on those. So that's number one. The cost is ridiculous. And I don't know if you do a quick search of what a kit would cost, and a kit is a soccer uniform, what it costs, it will blow your mind. Number two, well, soccer is still very much gaining in popularity here in the United States, which is awesome. It's still competing for our attention on a global stage. And because it's competing for our attention, it's also competing for American dollars. There's when it comes to international soccer, like it or not, there's a lack of a winning tradition here in the United States. And so as a company who really prioritizes winning, we celebrate winners and we kind of ignore the non-winners. It seems like we don't necessarily get excited about the World Cup because leading into it, not one person has said we have a chance to win. And that's hard to rally behind, even though I'll be watching the USA soccer games and hoping we pull every upset we can. But also it struggles to capture the daily year-round attention we get from the NFL, from the NBA, from Major League Baseball, and heck, even hockey these days. it really struggles to get our attention year round because unless you're following the MLS teams, whether it's the Nashville team here or Austin or Portland, unless you're following that, you soccer's probably not very much on your radar, and so it's hard for that. Number three, I am not sure, given the current political climate. This is not a political comment in terms of for or against. It's just a fact. I'm not sure how people in Europe feel about traveling to the United States and spending money here. I really don't right now. I don't have a feel for that at all. I could be way off, but my gut tells me people are a little reluctant to travel to the United States right now. And then last, I, I do think there's going to be a late rush as the games happen and excitement grows, especially if the United States makes a surprise run. Did a quick search, the top categories for branded merchandise for the World Cup in 2026. Country kits and jerseys, that's probably no surprise. Commemorative apparel like the generic World Cup t-shirts, which, by the way, if you've seen the logo, it is horrible. That probably could be another podcast, but it is dreadful. Official match balls and Panini sticker albums. Those are a very big thing when it comes to the World Cup. So I'd love to hear from you. If you're a supplier, I'd love to hear, have you worked with any distributors on World Cup, official World Cup merchandise? Or if you're a distributor, are you getting a taste of that? Are you getting to wet your beak when it comes to the World Cup? I sure as heck hope so. And let's hope that the USA scores some upsets and it goes into a late run here for the World Cup. All right, before we bring on our guest, let's go ahead and pay one more bill, shall we? Many people know how to build a business, but few really understand not only when to sell that business, but the process involved to ensure that you find the right partner and maximize the return on your investment. And honestly, this is where you need an expert, especially one in the branded merchandise space to help you, which is where our friends over at Certified Marketing Consultants come in. Jamie Watson and her team have decades of experience in facilitating private company sales in our industry. Now, to help you evaluate if it's time to sell your business, go ahead and reach out to them at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, that's enough of me for the little preamble. Let's go ahead and bring on our guests. You know what? My guest today, he doesn't need an introduction at all, but let's waste some of his time. Let's waste some of my time. And maybe most importantly, let's waste some of your time. He is a seasoned executive with more than 2 decades of leadership in the promotional products industry. As executive director of the Specialty Advertising Association of Greater New York, you might know it as SAAGNY, he oversees the strategic and operational leadership of both the association and its 501c3 charitable arm, the SAAGNY Foundation. Under his guidance, SAAGNY has achieved significant growth in revenue, membership engagement, and event participation through forward-thinking initiatives and partnerships. He's a passionate advocate for the industry, for industry collaboration and professional development. He's been actively involved in numerous volunteer initiatives supporting education, community outreach, and industry advancement. His dedication and impact has been recognized through multiple industry honors. Please join me in welcoming my friend, the man who once introduced me to a large crowd before an education session as Bob Peachtree, the one and only John Cudahy. John, thank you for joining me, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. Pleasure to be here again.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know that story, just real quick, I'll before I get into the questions, it was a big. You were president of SAGNY at the time,
Yep.
um, and you were going to introduce me for a breakfast talk before the kickoff at Promotions East, and we're going to talk about Promotions East today. And you said, well, how do you want me to introduce you? And I said, I don't care, whatever you want to say. Not knowing that I'd be standing up next to John and I'll give you the entire introduction. Here's Bob Peachtree. He's going to talk to you. And he just went and sat down. That was it. So that probably sums up our relationship pretty well.
Yeah, got to keep you on your toes, brother.
Absolutely. So we've known each other for years. We've been friends for a long time. You really started in this industry on the supplier side. You were hit for a while, Prime, Raining Rose. Now you're the executive director at what I think is probably the largest regional association, I think by numbers, at SAGNY, the Specialty Advertising Association of Greater New York. Why did you make that move? And then I'd love to follow that up with what was the biggest change in how you approached work from being a supplier to being an executive director?
Yeah, so I started in the industry in 2004, and that feels more and more horrible every single day. Doing customer service at Starline in Buffalo, New York, and
All right.
my goal was always to help customers grow their business.
Sure.
And as my career proceeded into different suppliers, and as a volunteer for SAAGNY starting in 2007, it was always again to grow their business, to help them be the best possible self that they could be. Um, Moving into the ED role allows me to do that more from not just a supplier to distributor aspect, but from the entire industry.
Right.
Through the events that we do, what I like to call intentional collisions, education, access to things that people might normally have access to. From this seat, I can promote change, promote growth, and just keep the industry moving forward more so than I could as a supplier rep. And
Right.
I have a front row seat, and I do this full time, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and you do a heck of a job. And let's go
Thank you.
back in time. Let's get in our time machine. Let's talk optics, shall we? You and I had a very well-known and public disagreement about the first Spark event in Denver, Colorado. For those of you who don't know, Spark was kind of a initiative by PPAI in 2017, 2018 to really encourage the next generation of promotional products professionals to get together. I loved the idea, to be very clear, but I didn't love how the event was presented. And so I'll say this, and then I want to hear what your perspective is. I wanted to know what the learnings were. I was very excited about this type of event, but what came out of it, how it was shared, was very secretive. There was no learnings. There was nothing. It's not like what you see coming out of, like, for example, NALC. A lot of people sharing what they learned and things like that. So that didn't rub me the wrong way. I just thought it was a bad look more than anything else. So why did it take you almost 8 years to realize I was right and you were wrong?
Well, I'm
I'm
still
kidding.
salty about this.
No, I'm kidding. But looking back, do you think the way the event was presented was accurate in that I just didn't get it?
100%, because it wasn't for you. This
No,
is an
100%.
event
But it was for
for
the
the next
industry.
generation. Huh?
No, go
Sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
It was meant for the next generation coming up. It was meant for us. It was meant for us to experience the industry, experience learnings in our own fashion. And the one thing that I learned coming out of that is change is uncomfortable, and
Sure.
growth takes a lot of courage. And when people don't understand it, they're going to do exactly what you did and criticize. And
So,
and
okay.
and the learnings, I remember sitting in a bar listening to this guitarist speak about just his life journey. And it was nothing
Mhm.
more than us sitting around and chatting. And it was so inspirational. And that inspiration could not be captured with pictures or with a Facebook post or with an
That's fair.
email. It was in the moment, and it was for those that it was experiencing it. And it wouldn't have done it justice to say, "Hey, here we are at a bar listening to a musician." That doesn't resonate well. The optics aren't there with that.
Sure.
So it
Okay.
was it, it was an opportunity for younger people within the industry, the next generation, to really experience it firsthand and make it ours and keep it ours.
I I hear you 100% on like that type of format. I really do. But I'm going to push back a little bit because I think you know me well enough. I don't fear change at all. Never have, never will. I know it wasn't jealousy. I always thought it was a great idea that young professionals in our industry should have an event. And it's no different in my mind than WLC, the Women's Leadership Conference. I just want selfishly, I want to learn from that. I want to learn from people like you, from Jeff Franklin and the people who went to that event. And it just felt like, and I probably handled it wrong. Let's be honest. I'm not exactly perfect, but I wanted to selfishly, I wanted to learn. I want to learn from you guys. There are things you guys understand and know and see that I don't. And so to me, that was kind of like, damn, I felt shut out. Not that I needed to attend the event. That's not for me, right? 100%. But I did want to learn about the event.
And I think those learnings, the group that helped plan that, I mean, we're all still friends to this day.
Yeah.
the learnings again aren't going to come from a Facebook post
You're
or
right.
an email. It's going
You're
to come
right.
from sitting down and having the conversation. And
And
that's
that's
exactly
where
what should have happened. And that's what should still continue to happen to this
I
day. And we
agreed.
have a
That's
whole
where,
new group of people coming up that are so completely different than us. Their needs are different. I'm old in the industry now.
yeah, you are.
This new group needs to have that voice. They need to have that outlet. And again, they're going to do a much better job portraying that digitally than this group of millennials that planned this event would have done or did
Uh,
do.
it,
Um, but it's an amazing opportunity that we really need to put some more focus on moving
it,
forward.
it is. I think you and I are 100% in alignment on that. And, if I could go back in time, I would have handled it differently. I would have, because my irritation wasn't with you as an attendee. It wasn't even with the work group who planned the event. It was more at PPAI for not reporting on it. That's not, to me, it's not about, well, gosh, I wish you guys would have made more posts. It came across that way, but that was not my intent. My intent was more, why isn't PPAI reporting on this? Because that's somebody's responsibility to come up with a 500-word article about here's what they did. That's all I wanted out of it. So I totally get where you're coming from, but I want you to hear where I was coming from too. I encourage, just like you, those type of events to happen.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
1000%. They need to happen more and more and more.
absolutely. So looking back, that was what, 8 years ago ish. What did you learn from the event that you took with you?
I think the biggest takeaway was what I just said. Change is uncomfortable, and
Yeah,
it takes courage to start a movement. And when people don't understand, they're going to use their voice to criticize instead of question and roll up your sleeves and help. And that still rings true to this day with everything that I do in my personal and professional life. I mean, when you're taking chances, someone is going to not understand and
agreed.
it's going to be difficult.
100%.
Um,
I get that in my
and
professional life too.
and the other big takeaway too is with that uncomfortableness, with that criticism, something as vital to our industry, such as uplifting and educating the newcomers within the industry, going after newcomers, can be quelled just like that because it's not understood.
Yeah, I never wanted it to be quelled. I just wanted the learning shared. That was it.
Yeah.
That
No,
was it.
agreed.
Well, you and I, we got over it very quickly because, like I said, I didn't think I handled it the way in my head, I handled it beautifully, but the reality was I probably could have handled it a lot better. But, it did lead to a falling out with like Seth Barnett, who still hasn't forgiven me to this day. So
No, definitely. He never will.
and I don't know why, because I'm fully
No,
happy to
I'm
fall on
kidding.
my
I'm
sword.
kidding.
I'm not. I know he won't. Okay, so you're running the largest regional association in the industry. So I do have a few questions about that. How do you
Okay.
manage a passionate board of volunteers at the same time they're your bosses? How do you manage that?
No, and what's interesting, let's add to that being a supplier for 17 years, 20 years throughout that same time period. These are my friends. These were my
Yeah,
clients. These are colleagues. And it's difficult. It is this beautiful juxtaposition of relationships
yeah,
that takes active management. You can't just sit back and expect everything to be hunky dory all the time. You have big personalities, you have different relationships across the board. And the most important thing that I try to stress and remind everybody is we're all sitting around this table for the exact same reason.
yeah.
We
They all
want to
want the
see,
same things.
yep, the end goal is all the same. We want to ensure the success of our members, of the industry, of the association. How we
Yeah,
get there, that's where the difficult stuff comes in. That's where the messy
sure.
stuff comes in. But at the end of the day, we're all around this table for the exact same reason. And one thing that we do in all our board meetings is we do good and welfare at the end.
Yeah,
Those
I,
conversations during the board meeting can be intense, can be passionate.
and they should be.
Yeah, 100%. The board right now is a very, very passionate group of people,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
absolutely love it. But at the end of every meeting, we take, the SAAGNY hats off and we do
yep.
good and welfare and we ask a question, if you could leave tomorrow, where would you go? And that kind of relieves all that stress of the conversation and changes the mindset. So we always end on a positive note.
Love that. Yeah, I've served on many boards, as you know, on the regional level, national level, and I always felt very strongly exactly what you said. We can disagree all we want in the boardroom. Absolutely. But when we leave this boardroom, we are a united front, whether the vote went your way, this person's way, my way, whatever. We are a united front. And I love that. What challenges do you face as or that's unique to SAAGNY that maybe other regional associations don't really encounter?
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything unique. I mean, all regional associations, we're trying to grow members, we're trying to be financially stable. I think one of the main unique aspects of SAGNY is its geography. So
Yeah.
we cover New York, which from Buffalo to Montauk is 600 miles,
Yeah. It's not
Southern
small.
Connecticut, North Jersey, and from a size that's a massive territory. But what makes it even more unique is the bridges and the rivers and the tolls and the traffic. So
Hmm.
an event, me coming from Queens and going to New Jersey, that's probably 18 miles. That could take me 45 minutes or 4 hours, depending on what kind of day. Did someone get in an accident? And
Right.
so it makes it very unique how we need to plan things. We need to make sure we're moving around geographically to make sure we engage as many people as possible. And something as simple as a car accident can totally upend an event.
Yeah.
And you just need to plan accordingly. You need to be intentional with the decisions you make, and move it around the region as best as
Yeah.
you possibly can.
How do you, one of the things I've noticed, it's getting more and more difficult to have people who are passionate, and you do want passionate people on your board because it means they care. It seems harder to get those people to raise their hand and say, I want to do that. I mean, when I first started volunteering for boards, I had to run for a board seat. I was ran against somebody, and now it's more of a, hey, can you fill this role? How do you encourage people to run for, or in some cases, join the board?
Yeah, it is getting more difficult. I think in today's industry, people are busy, and giving up the free time is not a luxury that a lot of people have anymore. And
Yeah.
the way that I try to help in that process is just have the conversations after events. Take the
Hmm.
time to walk around to every single exhibitor there. Uh,
Yeah.
Give me the good, bad, the ugly. I can't fix what I don't know is broken. And then in
Absolutely.
turn, if they have a solution, if they have a great idea, instill them with the leadership to run with that. I like that idea. Let's
Hmm.
get you on a committee. Let's get some support behind you, and let's run with that. Let's see where this can go. And by changing the mindset of a complaint to an idea to enacting that idea helps move that along.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. All right, let's kind of. I know you have some things you want to talk about, but I have one last thing I want to talk about.
Got it.
You have Promotions East coming up in a few days from when this drops, which I'm real excited about what you've done. You and the board have worked tirelessly to rework that entire event in ways I think are absolutely worth sharing. And this is coming from someone who got in the industry as a member of SAGNY uh, earlier than you, year 2000 for me. Promotions East always has a soft spot in my heart. So why the move away from Atlantic City to New York City?
Atlantic City was an amazing home for our event for many, many years. We were the first event in the Atlantic City Convention Center back in
Hmm.
1996.
I
And
know. Yeah,
before that, it was at the Concord Hotel in upstate New York. And so the event has always gone through different iterations.
sure.
And I think this was just a natural switch, a natural iteration in the growth of the event. The industry has changed significantly over the years. Atlantic City was awesome. Atlantic City is not awesome anymore. There's always been somewhat of a dark cloud over it from a transportation standpoint, from a nightlife standpoint, um, and then just being kind of stronghold into these huge casinos, these huge properties, and we wanted to be a little more nimble. And New York
Mhm.
City's in our backyard. It's an amazing asset that we have that we really wanted to take advantage for the members.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I do. You and I've talked about this offline, so I won't. I mean, I'll just say I think it's brilliant. Now, when you were reimagining the event, John, What was the most important thing to you in the committee in terms of the overall experience?
So the overarching theme is bringing our industry, the promotional products industry, not SAGNY, the industry into the forefront, bring it into the spotlight. That's
Yep.
why it's in Manhattan. That's why it's an end user event.
Hmm.
Focusing on the end users is kind of a trickle down effect or trickle
Sure.
up, depending on how you want to look at it. We
Yeah.
want to make sure that when they walk in the door, they are absolutely floored. They are wowed.
Hmm.
That in turn is going to make their distributor partners look like absolute rock stars. That's going to have help build those relationships. Exhibitors are going to have the unique opportunity to talk to the true decision makers, the people who are having the issues, these marketing problems that they need help solving. That's going to make them look rock stars. We Over the years we've done an amazing job kind of hiding behind this self-inflicted veil.
Hmm.
We solidified our industry, kind of as the redheaded stepchild. How far down the list are we on the marketing budget
Yeah.
because of these self-inflicted, curtains that we put in front of our face.
Right.
So this event is all about bringing it to the forefront. We got to scream it from the rooftops. PPAI is doing a ton of great research about the industry, which from a data standpoint is fantastic for end users to know.
Yeah.
And this is our attempt, from the regional level to do the same thing. We want to grow the industry, we want to grow our members, and by hosting an event at this scale in this location is a great first step to do that.
Yeah, I love it. Look at when you're looking forward to next week, what do you think will surprise attendees the most?
Just the amount of intentional collisions that we have planned throughout the day. So the product discovery is 100% one of the most important features of any event like this. You
Sure.
want to show your clients new product, new options. The product discovery journey of an end user is amazing because half of the day they're saying, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you
Hmm.
could do that. I didn't know you can do that. And that brings so much joy to me.
Love
But
it.
they can get overwhelmed.
It
And
can.
so from a relationship standpoint, giving
Hmm.
them opportunities outside of product discovery, the
Yeah.
Instagrammable moments, the hands-on experiences, the picture of you and your clients with Dame and John, like
Yeah.
those are the moments that are going to solidify that relationship. And in 2 weeks, are they going to remember the item number of that new mug that you showed them? Probably not, but that picture of you and your clients with Dame and John is going to sit on their desk
Yeah.
forever. And so that's really what I'm excited about.
Love it. Last question I have, and then your dime, your dance floor. What are you personally, John Cudahy, looking forward to most next week?
You know, I am so excited to see all of the hard work that this group of volunteers has, like you said, worked tirelessly to put on. I can't wait for that to come to fruition. And I think
Yeah.
the industry forgets that everyone involved in this is a volunteer, not just SAGNY,
Yep.
but any regionals, those networking events, shows, educational sessions. Those are volunteers. Those are your
Yeah.
peers, your colleagues, your friends.
Yeah.
They're giving up their free time for you. They
Yep.
want to make experiences and events to help you grow your business. They want you to be successful. And seeing all of this happen, seeing the hugs, seeing the handshakes, seeing the smiles, I can't wait just for everybody who's put in so much work to this finally come to fruition.
I love that. And having had the honor of serving on the Promotions East Committee for a few years, I do know the amount of work that goes into it. So congratulations to you, the committee. I can't wait to see, how it's received. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. All right, John, what do you got? What do you got for me?
So I got a couple kind of long-term questions for you.
Sure.
Um, Consolidation.
Yeah.
Nothing new in the industry. We've been seeing it for many, many years, but recently it just feels different to me.
Hmm.
It's bigger, it's more grandiose. Just in the last 3 years, I promote you acquiring AIA, Alpha
Right.
Broder acquiring Prime, and then SNS acquiring everybody. And then yesterday we saw the news of Sanmar acquiring Bella Canvas.
Yep.
What are your thoughts of acquisition at this scale? Does it benefit the industry? Is good, bad? What are we looking like in 5 and 10 years? Kind of just
Yeah.
overarching thought on that.
I don't think it's either good or bad, to be honest with you. I think it's an is. Um, nothing isn't, I live in the gray. Nothing's black or white for good or bad. I'm sure there are going to be some good things about it. I think there's probably going to be some negative things about it. And to me, it's kind of just a reflection of almost where we are as a society right now. It's, the middle class of in our industry is being effectively squeezed or bought out. So you have haves and you have nots. And so it's going to be, I think the good thing that comes out of it, it really inspires the have-nots to rethink how they go to market and get more innovative and more creative, to hold on to or hopefully increase their market share. I think the downside of it, I think there's always uh, lack of competition means sometimes lack of aggressive pricing. And so that can not be a great thing for, distributors who are, squeezed just like suppliers are. So I don't think it's going to stop. When I
That's for
don't know
sure.
when it was. I assume when Halo sold in 2004 to HIG Capital, and I was there, and I think that was really the first venture capital money foray into the industry. People figured out that there's money to be made here, and so because of that, it's not going to stop until there's not a drop of money left.
No, I agree completely, and I think you know it's kind of the double-edged sword as events like Promotions East, which are
Yeah,
client-facing huge events, continue to happen. We're going to see more eyes from that capital standpoint onto the industry, and I
yeah.
agree with you. I don't know if it's good or bad. I think I'm in the gray as well, but it feels different, you know?
It does feel different, especially, you and I have been in the industry a long enough time to remember the mom and pops of the world. I remember the first time, I started my career at Halo in New York in 2000. And I remember my first supplier meeting was going to meet Bob Lederer and his son Jeff Lederer at Prime. It was a family business. And now it is again, a little bit. But it's changed. And that's what, look, things change. We talked about change earlier. I don't resist change. I like change. I think change is healthy. Change is good. Change inspires people. So, yeah, I could sit here and complain about it, but it's not going to do anything. It's not going to change what's happening. And if venture capital money wanted to come buy Brandivate, you don't think I'd listen to that in a heartbeat? Of course I would. So I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite. Yeah, it's changing,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. Unfortunately, you can't control it, so I don't worry about it.
Yeah. And I agree completely. To go back to what I said, change is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why this feels different, for
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
Okay, flip side of that coin, it seems like technology has made it incredibly easy to come into the industry. So now we're not
Yep.
talking about behemoths.
Yeah.
We're talking about just getting into the industry. Seems like all you
Yeah.
need is a heat press, Shopify store, and a TikTok, and
Yeah.
now you're in a promotional products industry.
Mhm.
How do we in the industry welcome this growth? Because obviously it's growth, and apply a standard to it, or do we need to apply to a standard to it? Do we need to continue to enforce the supply chain, or trying to prevent a race to the bottom, or just straight education on how you should grow your business, or again, do we need to?
That's a really interesting question, first of all, and a tough question. You can produce so much merch on your own without going through the traditional promotional product supply chain. I'm not sure we do police it. There are fundamental truths in life. And one of them is, in my opinion, again, we all have our own universal truths. So one of mine is, generally speaking, over time, the cream rises to the crop. So there are going to be some people who are doing it out of their garage and they've got a Cricut and they've got a couple other things and a laser engraver, and they're going to do their one-off merchandising through their TikTok shop. And the quality will not be consistent. There's going to be no recourse for end users to get, satisfaction if there's some sort of quality issue or anything like that. And those people will go by the wayside. And then there's going to be some people who do the exact same thing in their garage and they care very passionately and very deeply about making sure they don't overextend themselves and making sure that each piece that goes out the door is of quality. I, I'm not sure we do police it until someone comes in and either gets a PPAI number or an ASI number. And that's where I think I want to say enforcement begins. I want to say that's where the education really needs to begin.
Yeah.
And we've historically, as an industry, done an extremely poor job of helping out new people in the industry. Um, the global, we used to joke, look, if you have a pulse and a working credit card, congratulations, you can be part of ASI. I'm not sure what the standards are these days. I think they're a little more stringent, but I don't really know.
Yeah.
And that's ASI's business. They're a for-profit company, so I understand that. That's not a criticism of ASI. It's just that's how they do business. I'm not sure we can. With the technology as it is, I'm not sure we can and police it. I don't think there's anything to police. I think it's self-policing based on quality, supply, and demand.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that as well. It, one thing that we at SAAGNY talk about
Mhm.
is, the duty of the regional association. It would be amazing to bring them into the fold and not
Yeah,
police, but educate and
absolutely.
help them understand so they can all rise to the top and not, lose clients or go out of business because they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. And that's one of the, back to our Spark conversation. That's why I was always really curious what happened there. What can I learn from that group of people that I don't know? And I think that's what you're saying with a group of people who or an individual that might be doing it out of their garage. Maybe they've hit on something we haven't thought of.
Yeah,
I want to know that. I think that's important
absolutely.
to want to know.
Absolutely. Okay, final question.
Yes, sir.
I got a brand new Traeger for my birthday.
Okay.
What should I cook this weekend?
May I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
How often have you smoked meat?
I've been smoking meat for probably 10, 12 years.
Okay, so you know what you're doing. You're not so
Well,
I
let's not go crazy.
I I think for a Traeger, the first thing I would do, especially because you have experience, if you had no experience, I'd say get a pork butt. It's an extraordinarily forgiving piece of meat. I would go ribs. I would go ribs.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion.
So I was planning on doing Korean brisket burn ends,
There you go.
um, but I can do ribs.
I think you should do whatever makes you and your family happy. That's what I think.
Yes, that's McDonald's for my
Okay.
children.
Before we let you go, let's thank our pals over at Shapenco for sponsoring this fine broadcast for 90 years and 4 generations of family ownership. They have defined stability by caring about the success of their distributor partners and have just fantastic product, super, super people as well. Head over to shapenco.com to start your next project today. John, as always, great to see you. Always great to hang out with you. I'm bummed I'm not going to be in New York City next week for Promotions East, but I know it's going to be a hell of a show.
Awesome. Bill, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be in your presence, and you will be missed at Promotions East. And if you haven't registered for Promotions East yet, do it now. sagny.org/promotionseast NYC.
There you go.